understanding the chemistry of the Spirit. Understanding the chemistry of the Spirit. Very quickly, we're going to be looking at the book of John, chapter number 4, the Gospels according to John 4, verse 23 and 24. I'm going to read right away. It says, "But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him." Verse 24. God is a spirit. I think that was error in translation, though the word should have been the Spirit. All right, with a definite article. God is the Spirit, and they that worship him, underline the word, must worship him in spirit and in truth. So we are dealing on understanding the chemistry of the Spirit. You know, one of the reasons, and I should say major reason, the church lacks power. One of the major reasons the church lacks his presence, his glory, and the manifestation of the Spirit of God, regardless of our over-garnished advertisements in all media platforms. One of the reasons, like I said, the major, predicates upon the fact that God is starved of worship. The primary major reason amongst every other reason is because God is starved of worship. You know, it is quite tragic to say that we have managed to confuse singing and rattling and noises of our sophisticated state-of-the-art instruments to what ideal worship, from the context of the word worship, is, as God refers it to. This was a statement of Christ, of course, in John 4 verse 23 and 24, where we read, and that's what we are going to be dealing with as we talk on understanding the chemistry of the Spirit. I find it tragic to say, for emphasis purposes, that it is quite tragic to have come to this reality that we have managed to confuse singing, rattles, noises of our sophisticated instruments in church to what ideal worship, in the context of what God refers to as worship, is all about. Let me make this point crystal clear to us. You know, to worship God with all forms of instruments is his singular heart desire. All right, I want to strike this balance so that you don't misunderstand my concept. To worship him with all form of instruments is his singular heart desire, which is why if you read the book of Ezekiel 28 verse 13, you would have come to realize that, you know, from this scripture, people have coined out and crafted out an ideology by saying that Satan was, when he was Lucifer, of course, in heaven, a choir master. There's nothing of sort. Yes, he wasn't a choir master. But if you read that passage between lines and understand morphology of words, if you understand the etymology of words, you would have come to realize that the component of the materials God used in creating Lucifer before he became Satan were musical instruments. So he was a compendium of musicianship, an embodiment of musicianship. He was not necessarily a choir master, but a movement of music by himself. Now, take for instance, if you are acquainted with musical instruments, you will realize that keyboards constitute a lot of sounds. There are what they call styles, where you could get over approximately 200 to 300 sounds. And then you come to where they say voice, you could also get approximately over 1,000 or more, depending on the capacity or the size or the made of such a keyboard. That is to say that one keyboard can give to you all manner of instruments. This was a type of Lucifer. I'm saying this to portray this point crystal clear, that to worship God with all forms of instrument is a similar desire, because he enjoys instrument which he created the devil the same way when he was Lucifer. The Bible said he did walk around the stone coal of fire around the presence of God, so that as he takes steps in his movements, God enjoyed those sounds. But here's the point. Inasmuch as there is nothing wrong with worshiping him using all manner of instruments during worship, the point is to make sound with all forms of instruments and sing along with it is totally out of place with God. I don't want to rush this, so I like you to understand. Okay, we're in the era where there are a lot of competitions by churches on whose instrument is the best. My point here is this: God takes pleasure in receiving worship when instruments, sophisticated instruments, are in place. All right, there's nothing wrong in using all forms of instruments in worshiping him, but to make sound with these instruments and sing along with it is out of place with God. I'm going to explain that as we move on. If you look at verse 23 of where we read, Jesus, speaking to the woman by the well, said to her, this woman came to fetch water. And I just pause a while to meditate in some seconds. She came to fetch water by the well, and Jesus was talking about worship. What is the relationship between water and worship? He said to her, you were told that a time is coming where true worshipers will worship the Father. He said, but I say unto you that that time you were told is coming has come, when true worshipers, not qualified singers, true worshipers, not people who are professional musicians, true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, not professional singers, not musicians, but worshipers. I'd like you to take note of that, because this is key. He didn't say, for the Father seeketh such to sing to him, but to worship him. Then again he added, he said, God is the Spirit, and they that worship him must. I told you to underline the word must. God is the Spirit, the very Spirit that you are looking for, the very Spirit that you are desiring to worship. He said to her, God is the Spirit, and they that worship him, if it must be worshipped, he said, they must. So this is a matter of a must. It is non-negotiable. If it has to be what he chose and desire, he said, they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, I'd like you to understand this. He did not say in the spirit, but he said in spirit. I'm yet to explain that to us clearly. In spirit, not in the spirit. and in truth, not in the truth. So I like you to pay attention to this very closely. Spirits don't appreciate melody and harmony. That doesn't move them. Spirits don't eat melody and harmony. It doesn't matter how long you may have trained your voice. It doesn't matter the restrictions you've given yourself not to eat certain kind of things, of course, in order to train your vocal cord. Spirits don't eat melody. Spirits don't eat harmony. Rendered to them with sonorous voice, golden voices, like they used to say. Wow, he or she has a golden sonorous voice. No, spirits don't eat voices. They don't eat melody. They don't eat harmony. What then does the spirit eat? The answer is simple. Yeah, the answer is simple. Worship